When it comes to winning money, who could be more deserving of it than those who need it the most? Coming up, men's shelters in Aspen, bad luck with finders keepers, tent city winners, and more. Join us as we explore some of the homeless people who have won the lottery. Glen. As a lottery winner, you don't have to make an enormous sum for it to be important. Glen Williams was a homeless man on the side of the road in Massachusetts when the winter began to come on. As the fear of freezing to death would rise and the snow began to fall, Williams was standing on the corner asking for change when he met his guardian angel. A woman by the name of Sophia had just won the lottery, although it might not be for as much as you'd expect. It was a scratch-off ticket for just $200. That being said, she used it all to help a random homeless stranger. And you guessed it, it was Glen Williams. Sophia saw Glen on the corner, took him out for coffee and a meal, and then used the rest of her minuscule winnings to get Williams 3 nights in a hotel. As if giving away the entirety of her lottery winnings wasn't enough, she then had more for Williams. She began a GoFundMe page on Glen's behalf, and in just 2 days had raised over $15,000. The campaign would go on to get public notoriety, and material donations were made to Williams, which included warm clothing, food, and even a free haircut. Glen would be completely overwhelmed by the generosity, and I mean, who wouldn't be? Sophia may have just saved his life that winter. Emily. Good luck charms can be amazing for building confidence, and sometimes can help you out of a risky situation, but things can get complicated when they actually win you the lottery. Emily Leach won $1 million on a lottery ticket, and it was a godsend. She had recently ruptured her spleen and had severe pancreatitis, and used some of the money to pay off the towering medical debt. The story would make headlines, as a famous and useful lottery win is something that people actually want to read about. Unfortunately, though, the public also likes to read about selfish people. Months after, she would win $26,000 on another scratch-off ticket, and an astounding bit of luck. And she gave it to a homeless man, which on the surface may seem like a charitable thing to do if she had done it on purpose. Leach claims that she meant to give him the money and accidentally gave him the winning ticket. But the homeless man, and more importantly the lottery clerk, tell a different story. The homeless man, who's chosen to remain anonymous, says that he gave Leach money so that she could actually buy the ticket for him, as she had famously already won. Then, when the ticket did actually win, the clerk said that Emily voluntarily handed the winning item to the homeless man. Emily says that she didn't mean to, and when she found out the law was against her, this millionaire would ask the homeless man to actually split the money with her. As you can imagine, the public wasn't pleased with this call, and the backlash would be immediate and harsh, which serves her right. But congratulations are in order for the anonymous winner who bet on the right horse. Wilbur. Living homeless can be a difficult thing, and it's made much more worse when you're suffering from physical and mental disabilities. This was certainly the case for Wilbur Herbert, who was declared disabled while living alone on the streets. Wilbur was unable to afford his daily expenses, and as time wore on, he was slipping through the cracks. Fortunately enough for Wilbur, though, he was able to reconnect with his brother and his sister-in-law, and they worked to get him back on his feet. One day on a whim, Wilbur's sister-in-law would encourage him to buy into the astounding $1.6 billion Powerball jackpot. Now, for those of you out there who love statistics, this might not seem like a very good thing to encourage a very poor man to do, but amazing fortune was on Wilbur's side. His single $2 line of numbers would earn him a quick $50,000, which is enough to change any man's life, especially if you're homeless. Funny enough, though, Wilbur didn't expect to win and slept through the drawing. He would learn in the next few days of his amazing fortune, and many years before, he had actually played the Powerball and won. While at the time it was only $500, he's a man who actually defies the odds for sure. Wilbur and his brother were shocked at the $50,000 surprise, and his sister-in-law is confident that it's going to help Wilbur change his life, turn it around, and get him permanently back on his feet. Boric. Injustice has a tendency to make us all upset, but just imagine how you'd feel if you were unable to claim your lottery winnings. That would be a lot to take in, and a lot of deep breaths might not be enough for such an extreme situation. Steve Boric was in this unlikely and unfortunate position when he played an $8 Keno game. That's because he went on to win $25,000. It was his first time ever playing a lottery-style game, and luck was on his favor. This was a short-lived happiness, however, because when he went to collect his winnings, he was asked for photo ID, which he didn't have. Boric had been homeless, moving from temp job to temp job for the past couple of years, and when he was questioned, he said that he lost his ID when his wife left him, and he never felt the need to replace it. He was suffering from medical debt and depression and sleeping on the streets, and figured that a photo ID wouldn't really change his life at all or make it any different. Regardless, he was unable to claim the cash, and in order to replace his ID, he would need to get a new birth certificate, and to get a new birth certificate, well, he needed some proof. And that makes for a terrible revolving door to be stuck in. Fortunately, however, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation would help him out, and he was able to eventually collect his earnings. These days, Steve has a rented condo in Vancouver and has secured a more permanent position at a construction company. Dennis. When you think of a hierarchy of needs, shelter could be pretty high on the list. And if you were homeless and then won a bunch of money, it might be what you work on first. However, some people, well, they're just wired differently. Dennis Mahurin was living in a shanty town of tents and homeless people in Bloomington, Illinois, when he decided to take a chance on a scratch-off. It would turn out that Dennis's lucky day had arrived, and he won a whopping $50,000. While this did come as a welcome surprise, it didn't really change the caring nature of Dennis. That's because he would go on to spend most of the money to help out other people in his local homeless camp. Dennis is described as being very kind, with a superb sense of humor, and he would divvy up his winnings with the rest of his community rather than opting to get a larger and more permanent place to live. Dennis's admirable generosity, despite his difficult living conditions, is something that we could all aspire to, though he did very reasonably decide to purchase himself a larger tent. John Michael. Winning the lottery isn't always the easiest or most convenient thing to do. And if you're homeless, it can get you into a little bit of trouble. John Michael LeBlanc stumbled upon a winning lottery ticket while he was homeless on the streets. And it may seem like a moment from a fairy tale, but it doesn't end up so well for him. He would then go on to cash in the ticket, which was worth $260, and pocketed the money. But unfortunately, a woman had lost the ticket. She took a photo of the winning numbers and then reported it to the police. So when John went to cash in, he would get arrested. Going to court, he claimed finders keepers as a legal defense, and that didn't exactly go over well for him either. The magistrate wasn't so fond of the claim, and John would be forced to pay back the $260 plus $130 for the charge of stealing by finding, which is really the opposite of finders keepers when you think about it. Moreover, he had already spent the $260 on a bus ticket. This all makes for a pretty grim prospect for a homeless guy who doesn't have a job or any kind of cash at all. But there is good news. Local residents would become outraged by the verdict, and Kylie and Cameron, two neighbors of the homeless man, offered to pay his fine. John garnered a little bit of fame for his misfortune, and the whole community would step in to help out, raising $1,300 for him. So perhaps it's not exactly fairy tale, but it does have a happy ending for a hero. Crystal Nelson. Despite what you may think, anyone can consider themselves lucky. Crystal Nelson was living in her car in a parking lot and thought that she was pretty blessed when she won $1,000. It was a happy surprise and added temporarily to her comfort. but it didn't change the fact that she was still living with a friend inside of a cramped vehicle. Crystal worked as a newspaper delivery person and then purchased another Powerball ticket, which then went on to be a little better for her. It would net her an astounding $50,000, which is some serious luck. She's now working on purchasing a home along with a new vehicle, and is also trying to organize a trip to meet her brother in Arizona. And along with that, also plans to spend a fair amount of her winnings to pay off his house so that they can both own something. When you live in a parking lot, your perspective probably changes, and it might even allow you to focus on what really matters. Michael Engorfs. When things look their darkest, there's always a chance that you're going to get a big break. Michael Engorfs had a successful marriage and a business until both collapsed. This would leave him homeless in Aspen, Colorado. When he was able, Mike would stay in shelters, but was often on the street. One day, he bought a $10 scratch-off ticket and won a remarkable $500,000. The shocking surprise is estimated at $840,000 to 1, and an employee at the homeless shelter said that it couldn't have happened to a nicer man. The weekend that he won the prize, Michael spent the night on the floor of the homeless shelter because the director had to drive him to the lottery office in order to collect his winnings. Now, $500,000 richer, Michael Engorfs is back on his feet, working to reconnect with his daughter, and looks forward to buying a nice pair of skis. Apparently, he doesn't usually buy lottery tickets, but it's a good thing that he did on that day. Anyone who's ever had money problems, and by that I mean everyone, has thought of how much easier life would be if they could just win the lottery. Get a cool $1 million and live the rest of your life in comfort. Well, the dream is much nicer than reality. Join us as we have a look at some lottery winners who ended up wasting their golden ticket.